Hammer conjured up an array of entertaining demises for their most popular villain, riffing on various vampiric weaknesses to keep the concept fresh across its near 20-year span. But heed my warning, some of my choices may be controversial, and I'd love to hear your own rankings in the comments. Well, there's no need to beat around the hawthorn bush, let's rank every Dracula death in the Hammer series. Kicking things off with an honourable mention, we have The Brides of Dracula. The first sequel did not actually feature the titular count, as Christopher Lee was apathetic to the idea, and the studio was wise enough to not recast at this point. However, there is a Dracula stand-in of sorts, in the form of David Peel's Baron Meinster. For the sake of covering every entry in the franchise, I still think the Baron's final moments are worth discussing briefly. The symbol of the cross is repeatedly used to repel or damage Dracula and his cronies, but rarely does it strike the final blow. Following a splash of holy water and Van Helsing's second masterful leap in the series, he transforms the shadow of a windmill into the cross, trapping the Baron within the holy sign. I applaud the creativity, but it lacks Hammer's trademark brutality. The scars from the water are a great start, but then the cross itself disappoints. There are no visual effects of the Baron's demise. He just kinda sways and spins around a couple of times before flopping down. Altogether, it feels toothless compared to Dracula's many violent ends, which I suppose is fitting, as the blonde Baron himself is toothless next to his fanged superior. If this was to be included in the actual ranking, it would place somewhere in the lower tiers for sure. Now, onto the head vampire himself. Number 9. The Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. Dracula has been fannying about in China, adding cultural appropriation to his list of disgraces. After inciting 99.9% more kung fu than your regular Dracula flick, the Count finally removes his yellowface cosplay. But that's not Christopher Lee. Why, it's none other than John Forbes Robertson. Who? It's plain to see why Lee stayed away. An awkward standoff of dialogue swiftly morphs into an awkward standoff of action. A couple of bitch slaps later, and Van Helsing rather lamely impales his nemesis. That's it. No clever scheme or extra attack while the vampire is stalled. Dracula makes himself comfy on a coffin and endures what appears to be a very steamy case of constipation. Boy, even Cushing looks embarrassed. What saves this from being a total write-off is a 1-2 punch of neat flourishes during Dracula's decomposition. His eyes pop, which is a fun touch, and at the end of it all, the impaling spear is no longer lodged and slams down onto the skull, crashing it apart. A fine exclamation mark to punctuate the scene. Number 8. Taste the Blood of Dracula. My least favourite of the Christopher Lee Dracula deaths still has its merits. The villain is trapped by the protagonists inside a church, with crosses barring his exits at every turn. A stained glass window even gets a chance to deliver a sick burn. He breaks the glass, but realises the church has been restored to its sanctified glory. Oh yes, it's death by refurbishment. It's enough to overbear the poor chap and give him the worst case of vertigo since James Stewart.
Holy mackerel!
His disorientation and defeat is a great piece of acting from Lee, but the decision to include a stupid yell as he falls undercuts it. The decomposition is okay. While I dig the red mist, there are multiple better examples of melting vampires throughout the series. On the whole, this one's just missing a certain something, but I appreciate the notion of the church and faith destroying him without physical violence. The atmosphere during his dizziness with the prayers and the triumphant organ soundtrack blaring out, it's almost enough to convert me. Almost. Number 7. Dracula Prince of Darkness. I always wanted to like this ending more than I do. In theory, I like it. A set of precise gunshots break the ice around Dracula, and ultimately trap him against one of his lesser utilised weaknesses.
Running water.
Yep, that's what I was referring to, thanks. In execution, it looks a bit silly. I also feel like Dracula had plenty of time to realise the situation after the first shot, and he fumbled the ball hard. Not exactly Prince of Darkness behaviour, is it? I feel with some quicker cuts and tighter editing, it would really rectify the scene for me. That said, his helpless slip into the water is fantastic. Very Dr. No. The loud scream followed by silence, as we sadly have to bid farewell to his sexy new cape too. There is no staking and no decomposing, which is very rare, instead giving us this creepy final shot of him under the ice. Not bad. Number 6. Dracula A.D. 1972, the introduction. Quite straightforward, this one. A.D. 1972 is unique in that it features 2 Dracula deaths, one to open the movie and one to close it. The intro is set in the distant past, with gothic incarnations of Dracula and Van Helsing in media res atop a racing carriage. It's an exciting set piece, and an unusually high-octane opener for a Hammer horror. Old Dracky thinks he's dispatched his enemy, but he comes face to face with a new threat: Tree! Van Helsing comes too, and we are treated to just the sounds of stifled agony and Dracula's shuffling feet. Ho ho ho, curiosity peaks, and is satisfyingly satiated with the eternally memorable image of the vampire having a really bad time. Is he done for? No! Seeing his nemesis sparks fresh life in him, and the battle rages on. Van Helsing fashions the spoke into a stake, and we receive another standard decomposition, with the good guy succumbing to his fate in turn. Dramatic stuff, but not wholly original all the same. Still, any skirmish between Cushing and Lee elevates any death scene by a couple of points. Number 5. Dracula has risen from the grave. From this point on, these are the Dracula demises I really love, and it was quite a challenge to rank them. Veronica Carlson in a nightgown is ordered to remove a flashy crucifix from their path. She reluctantly obliges, and tosses it down into the valley below, where it lands in a rather blessed position. Then Dracula is so distracted by Veronica Carlson in a nightgown that he bangs his shin. No, Dracula is intercepted by insert interchangeable young dark-haired Hammer protagonist man here, and the pair recreate their favourite Harry Potter scene.
Let's finish this the way we started.
Together!
While the hero gets bushwhacked, Dracula lands on the cross, and through the cross, quite frankly. I wonder, is it time to rename him Vlad the Impaled? It's a bloody affair, and his pain is communicated brilliantly. The real impact of this fatality is just how damn long it goes on for. The vampire is truly suffering. And as an extra kick in the widow's peak, the Lord's Prayer is recited to snuff him out. Never mind a priest, get this guy an ophthalmologist! Number 4. The Satanic Rites of Dracula. This may not be the most beloved film in the saga, but the ending is one of its high points, personally. It's another case of utilising an underserved vampire weakness that provides a unique flavour. In folklore, the hawthorn bush was often linked to spiritual or mystic powers, since it was used to construct Jesus' spiky crown. These ideas bled into vampirism here and there. Some say it's a preferable material to make a stake out of. Others say it's a strong deterrent, akin to wolfsbane or garlic dip. In the film, Van Helsing and Dracula find themselves alone in the woods. The former accidentally pricks himself on the bush and recalls this bit of folklore trivia. He hides behind the flora and lures the Count towards it. It is unintentionally amusing for both the ultimate hero and the ultimate villain both accidentally walk into a bush, but it only gets better from there. Having recently cut down an entire disgustingly overgrown garden path full of thorn trees, this is the one Dracula death that I can relate to. I've not been torn open by a crucifix, yet, but this? Each prick makes me seriously wince. Besides that, it's an intriguing piece of supernatural flair, a very different approach to faith depowering a vampire. If it was just the bush, this might have ranked lower in my estimation. Thankfully there's more. Van Helsing rips a post from a nearby fence and goes old school, puncturing the villain's heart once and for all. Bear in mind, this was Cushing and Lee's final clash as these characters, And, realistically, the last film in the series, because Seven Golden Vampires is kinda its own thing over there in the corner. The comparatively drawn-out decomposition reflects this fact. It carries a sincere weight that impales my own heart. Its quiet soundscape is deafening. There's no overblown music, or screaming, or rampant body gurgles. The effects are less bloody than the other more modern movies in the franchise too, returning closer to the dusty feel of the original. That's a nice mirroring to tie the whole lot together in a small, symbolic way. Am I strange for finding this touching? Probably. There's just something about the finality of it, a notion that has been extremely absent in these movies thus far. If Lee had returned for the Seven Golden Vampires or some other sequel, that weight would be diminished. So, as emotional as it may be for me, I have to accept the behind-the-scenes interference, and that it should not rank any higher than this. Number 3. Scars of Dracula. This demise is simply a lot of fun. Dracula is once again pierced by an improvised weapon, but instead of the typical reaction, the Count coolly retains a straight face, removes the iron rod, and is all right back at you, mate. Alas!
Divine intervention!
Lightning may be Frankenstein's mother, but it's Dracula's killer. He is zapped and set alight. He flails about, his continued screams both horrific and slightly comical after a certain amount of time. First, his face turns into a rejected Michael Myers mask, and then into a sizzling shade of crispy bat. But if lightning and fire aren't enough for you, the filmmakers were generous enough to also chuck in the Denethor special. Like I said, a lot of fun. Number 2. Dracula A.D. 1972, the outro. I suspect this scene placing so high will be my most controversial opinion. If I'm honest, if I had created this video 15 years ago, it would have ranked somewhere in the middle at best. But as I grow older, and no longer need to pretend to be cool, I can accept that I love the campiness of AD 1972, and the climactic battle ramps the camp to the max. Van Helsing and Dracula face off in an epic scrap, set entirely to an unashamed, funky 70s beat. It's a welcome change of atmosphere when binging these movies. Sure, I love pure gothic horror as much as the next man, but I'm also drawn to quirky stuff. Death-wise, there are various aspects at play. The effects of silver finally come into play, with Van Helsing stabbing Dracula with a silver dagger. In a twist, Stephanie Beacham's bewitched Van Helsing relative releases the vamp from this affliction. Oh, look at his face. Love it. Like all good scraps, they take it outside. Our plucky protagonist reprises the holy water trick, this time with the most religious one-liner ever. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost! Listen to that delivery. Oh, love it! But that's not all. The bad guy slips into a spike trap, and Van Helsing violently finishes the job, forcing him down onto the stakes with a shovel. Oh, look how cool he is. Love, love, love it! Hammer ordered this death extra bloody. And we even get a second decomposition in one film. Therefore, mercifully, this is a shorter decay. It is silly, of course, ridiculous even, but boy, it scratches a certain itch. Number 1. Horror of Dracula. I was never in doubt about this choice. The original Death of Dracula is easily the greatest. After a chase, Cushing delivers that infamous curtain jump and subjects the vampire to a big hit of sunlight. Note how the other fatalities avoided sunlight entirely. Hammer must have known they could not top this. But it's not the one flash of sun that defeats him, no. Van Helsing makes it personal. Makeshifting across from nearby items, the badass backs Dracula deeper into the light so his whole body is consumed. Incredibly satisfying. And then there's the effects. Remember, this is the late 1950s. Imagine how shocking this scene was for audiences of the time, even with the more censored cuts they were shown. What a way to figuratively scream into a megaphone, "This ain't your daddy's tame monochrome universal affair!" A historic moment for Hammer, and for horror cinema too. Now, over to you guys. Let's hear your rankings. Any other AD 1972 sympathizers out there? No? Anyone? Guys?